Hello all, A Knife's Tale here, bringing you another review. Since we just looked at the Leslie George VECP in my last review, we're going to look at the Les George VECP done by Protech in this review. This knife, as you can see, is pretty interesting, mostly for the blade. The handles are aluminum with this texture pattern. It is an automatic knife. It is a spring-release automatics out-the-side knife with what I personally love, abalone. I love the stuff. And this thing has it in the button. Blah, 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 blah. Already stumbling. This knife, as you can see, is an S35 VN and has Protech's sapphire blue coating, which is something akin to a DLC, if I'm not mistaken. And Protech action. This fires quite hard. And looks quite good doing it. Let's jump to specs. If you watch the VECP one, then you know pretty much the specs, as this is pretty much the same knife, except it is a tiny bit shorter. You know what it is. It is not the same knife. This is about 3 3/8, where the VECPs are a little over 3.5. So 8 3/8 total length, and almost 5 inches on the dot. Maybe a tiny bit hair under on the handle length. We will do a quick comparison. The small knife comparison is the Civivi Elementum, which you can see this knife pretty much dwarfs. And the full-size knife is the Civivi Conspirator, which this knife is also dwarfing. Okay, I feel like that's impossible. Okay, yeah, I'm just losing my mind. It is the same as the VECP or full size. This is a 3.5-inch blade. I don't know what the heck I was doing. My eyes were tricking me there. I don't know what happened. That was weird. Don't ask. So, this is a large knife, or medium-size, full-size knife. It is taller than the Conspirator open and closed due to this area. It is, however, thinner than the Conspirator. Let's see if we can get that. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's definitely thinner than the Conspirator. So, full-size knife, what you expect with most full-size knives will apply here. It's still not a hard carry in any way, shape, or form. And adding to that is 4.56 ounces. It's less weight than the proper true VECPs from Les George. But it's still not an ounce an inch, but it's by no means heavy. You're not going to probably have a problem with this thing in and out of the pocket, though I do not love this clip. In fact, I hate this clip. Protech, please, please, please improve your clips. We'll get to that. Okay. Finish with specs before I start rambling on that hatred of that clip. About 1/2 inch wide on the handle. There's a little bit of chamfering, so it almost feels contour, but it's not. 123 thousandths. Okay. Yeah, let's call that I'm going to call that 122 thousandths and split the difference. It is thinner than the VECP, proper VECP, because that thing is 150 thousandths in blade stock. What's funny is it is slightly thicker behind the edge than the real VECP for the edge. So it has a thinner blade stock, but doesn't drop down as much and as dramatically. It is not much thicker. It is very close to the standard VECP, not very close to my hollow ground one, but my regular one it is. So you're getting a little bit thicker behind the edge for thinner blade stock overall. It'll probably even out in performance and perform Well, it performs quite well, I can tell you that much right now. And this one came pretty sharp. I have not used this knife more than just a tiny little bit on a few things to get a feel for it. And I don't probably plan to because, well, this is a pretty desirable knife in this configuration with this coating and everything, I think, and I want to keep it nice. So this isn't one that I'm going to be regularly using. T8 for the hardware check. That almost feels like a T9. Hold on a second. The body screws are T8. Pocket clip screws for some reason are T6, though it's not reversible, but I'm almost certainly going to get an alternate pocket clip for this thing. But I want to double check this is not a T9 pivot. It is a T9 pivot. Okay, so we got T9, T8, T6. I kind of wish they just made these screws, taken this middle screw out, and went with two larger T8 screws and made it all T8, and they can leave the T9 pivot if they want, whatever. Get good tools and you'll be fine. Then again, I'm not super keen on taking apart a Protech knife because of the automatic nature of it. So do with that what you will. Yeah, not something I'm super happy to find out how it disassembles anytime soon. Also, this is a clamshell construction, no backspacer, no opening, which is nice. I'm pretty sure it's on bearings in there, though it may be on phosphor bronze. Who knows? It's got that spring, so doesn't really matter what it's on, does it? Ergos are great. Super comfortable in hand. You feel the clip a little more than the real VCP, but it's extremely non-invasive. It, as horrible as it looks and as long as it is, and we're getting there, it's still super comfortable in the hand. And this is a good cutter, so it performs. Decent ergos on edge geometry and ergos. There was no play. Left, down. Ooh. If I really pull up and down, I can get a tiny bit of... I don't know if it's play or it's just I can feel the lock, like the button, moving just a tiny bit under my finger. It is perfectly centered. And it better be because they gave you that big seam. So, no, I'm not going to say it's enough that I would call it play. It just, you can muscle a little bit of sensation of up and down. But for the most part, no. And there's no side to side. This is not a fidgety knife. I mean, the regular VCPs aren't fidgety, but this is certainly not, because you've only got one method for this thing, and it's the button. The stop pin is big, thick, right here behind the blade. And in the closed position, the stop pin is way up in there. And as you can see, it has been in my pocket a few times. The stop pin is sort of way up in there. It's the pin of the button, which is way down here. So it's well away from the edge. The plunge grind is one thing that I think Protech needs to work on almost universally. Yes, they give a sharpening choil technically, but the plunge tends to end like right here behind the edge on almost all of their knives in my experience. I don't love that. I think they could do better with that. And again, this is pretty much all Protech's. Yeah, the plunge needs a little bit of a work. What doesn't need work is this finish, which is why we're here. It is a sapphire blue It is not being done justice whatsoever on camera. You can kind of see that it has a little bit of a pearlescence to it. That's a little bit of oils on it. It tends to go a little purplish, a little sheen here, but the core color of this thing is right here in this beautiful blue. Let's see if I can wipe that down a little bit. Get some of that. Yeah, I exposed. Yeah, see now the blue's over here. It's just a little bit of oil on it. The blade is very smooth. And the steel is good. It's S35VN. It's good steel. This is a USA made knife. Oh, before we go any further, as much as I've been would like to avoid it, yeah, there's no avoiding it. This pocket clip is terrible. This flat bill makes it unnecessarily a pain to get in your pocket. The retention is good. Quite solid. But it is a bit longer than it needs to be. It doesn't need the bill. Just cut that off. Better yet, do what I'm probably going to do and see if you can find yourself someone who makes a custom clip aftermarket for this thing and just stick that on there. I'm going to see if I can get something like a blue, like nebula kind of dragon scale or something like that clip. I think it'll look good. The texture does provide meaningful grip, but it also gets little bits caught in it all the time, as you can see right there. That was a little piece of my own skin. Another thing I'd like to see from Protech is that these textures need to be on both sides of the knives. I am a really big believer in design elements carrying through the entire knife. I don't like the idea of a show side and a lock side. If you look at even a handful of my reviews, you'll find almost no knives that are detailed on only one side. This knife was cool enough, desirable enough. I made the exception, and what is not on this side is not of substantial enough difference for me to say, oh no, I'm not going to take that. I would have probably even jumped on this faster if it didn't have this texturing, to be honest with you, but to be fair, this didn't stop me on this one. That is not the case for most things. There are many knives that I've liked the look of that I didn't even consider because the lock side was terrible. I like to see even just a little bit of detail or design brought over. If you want to leave a flat space under the clip, that's fine. Put a little bit of grip here and a little bit of grip down here. Just something. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's a dog in the background. Yes. This is a great knife. This is USA made. In aluminum and S35. The base model of this knife, which is much more available than this version of this knife, still has all of the good stuff just without the coating, for a price of around $230. For a USA made, high quality auto, and I think Protech is probably doing the best out the side autos. And I'm destroying my entire setup here. Woohoo. Yeah. Did you see it? It hits so hard that it bounces a little. If you don't have a good enough grip on it. if you go like this. Yeah. It's got a hell of a spring, hell of a fire. The execution, the finish on Protechs, while they have those few design elements that I think that need to be worked on, they're top notch. And honestly, with what you're getting, they're extremely competitive and extremely recommendable. they're almost going toe-to-toe with what you get for a Chinese knife in comparison. You usually end up with maybe titanium, but flat titanium at the 230 price range. That's the only difference, but you wouldn't probably get a automatic. So, yeah, Protech's doing some good stuff. I like Protech. I like this knife. I like their knives. I have a couple. We will be seeing more, and despite the strength of this thing, yes, I can close it one-handed. So, the regular versions of these are definitely recommendable. And I should say that the regular versions of these are not VECPs, they're called Rockeyes. That's what Protech calls them, so. But they're still less George design. That's all I have to say about this one. Let me know your thoughts on Protech and their patterns, and if you agree with some of the weird outliers of their design choices. There's just a few, and they're not enough to make me say that it's not a good knife, that it's not recommendable. No, not by no means. This is definitely still recommendable. Just a few strange choices on what is otherwise a pretty elegant looking knife. Drop a like, subscribe if you want, or don't. It's up to you. This was a relatively short one because there's not much to say here. I didn't put this thing through its paces. And honestly, this is more just a showcase of this knife. And that it's cool. And that it exists. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.